Discover the amazing moment when a hungry elderly man exposed an incredible truth that changed everything. Walter clutched the crumpled paper bag, its thin edges scratching against his skin as he sifted through yesterday's dinner remnants. The faint scent of old vegetable soup lingered, but it didn't matter. He'd trade 2 cans for a warm meal any day. Once a proud war veteran, he now scoured the town's alleyways for scrap and sought refuge at the community center, where the flickering fluorescent lights felt like a hollow promise of better days. Every morning, he rose with the sun, the orange glow spilling across his tiny room, illuminating plans sketched in his mind, ideas that spoke of resilience and hard work. The American dream had once felt achievable, but now it had faded into a distant memory, like the flags waving in the breeze during parades he used to lead. Yet, in this faded town, patches of kindness still grew. There were neighbors who would wave, offer a warm meal, or slip an extra grocery bag in his cart as he rummaged through cans at the local dump. This felt like charity to him, and Walter hated it. His pride clashed violently with need, holding him at a painful distance from the very help he craved. Maybe that's why his daughter, Sarah, barely spoke to him anymore. Their history collided with each call, each word heavy with unspoken blame. But everything changed when he overheard a whisper, a plan to exclude undeserving creatures like himself from a community fundraiser meant to uplift the needy. Anger surged through Walter, a flame ignited deep in his heart. Who decided who was worthy? No one was undeserving of a little grace. As he stood, coffee cup in hand, he realized he had to do something. He had to advocate for those like him. Before we continue, I need to let you know about something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to the system, and many people are losing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, hit that bell and mark all notifications so you don't miss the next videos. And if you can drop a like, it really helps me with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, let me know in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now, let's continue. The spark of revolt tugged at his gut as he stepped into the community center, demanding to speak. A hush fell across the room as eyes locked onto the old man, a quiet storm brewing among the crowd. Walter raised his voice, hoarse yet filled with a conviction he and T felt in years. "We're all deserving of dignity," he declared, and the weight of his words resonated. But back home, Sarah faced her own financial storm, spiraling into a crisis that forced her to see her father's struggles in a new light. The shadows of resentment began to lift, replaced by a flicker of understanding. Could it be that they were both fighting a common enemy, adrift in a world indifferent to their pain? As the townsfolk leaned into Walter's words, the tension in the air buzzed with a hopeful energy that hadn't existed before. Silently, they wondered the struggle for dignity was not confined to a single family. It was a community-wide battle. Would Walter's courage shatter the barriers between father and daughter? And as Walter stood there, resolute and vibrant in the face of adversity, an echo of uncertainty loomed. Would his stand for justice inch them closer together, or shatter them further apart? The room waited, holding its breath, on the brink of revelation. Would the journey toward understanding reveal hidden truths and mended bonds, or deepen the chasm between them? The echoes of Walter's declaration hung in the charged air, giving life to something greater than himself. He could see the flicker of recognition in their eyes, disenfranchised souls who sat silently, too familiar with shame to speak out. Their faces shared a language of longing, echoing his own desire for dignity. "Listen, we've all faced struggles," he continued, feeling the momentum surge within him like a tide rising. "No one should be left behind. Not here, not now." His heart raced. It felt like a spark igniting. Could this ignite a fire? Around him, whispers turned into murmurs, and one by one, the community members leaned in, curiosity tinged with a budding hope. But for Sarah, watching from the back of the room, confusion and anger twisted together in a tight knot in her abdomen. How could her father stand there so boldly, demanding justice when it felt like he had abandoned her, like he had abandoned their relationship? Her heart ached as memories flooded back, family dinners that turned into silence, birthdays that faded into empty cards. She had felt so alone navigating her own challenges, and now he was rallying the community for a cause she almost resented. Yet, something within Sarah stirred. Between Walter's impassioned speech and the growing crowd around him, a smoldering ember of empathy flickered beneath her frustration. Was it fair to hold her father solely responsible for their distance? Perhaps they were both victims of life's harsh realities. As she grappled with her emotions, she noticed someone in the corner, an elderly woman with twinkling eyes. The woman nodded along with Walter's words, tears glistening on her cheeks. It was as if she had heard the stories of struggle and resilience that echoed through her own past. And that simple acknowledgement sent a jolt of recognition through Sarah's heart. She wasn't alone, none of them were. What about those who are still here, fighting each day? Walter's voice rang out, thick with emotion. Let us lift each other, not tear each other down. The crowd began to murmur in agreement, a wave rolling through the room. It felt electric, but would that wave touch Sarah? She felt frozen in time, caught between the past she had built around her father's absence and the prospect of a future where they could stand shoulder to shoulder, fighting the same fight. Could she tear down the walls she'd built? Just then, a bold voice from the front called out, "What can we do to help?" It was a younger man, earnest and eager, and his words stirred the room, stripping away hesitation. Murmurs of conversation erupted, ideas began to spark, and electrifying plans took shape as a community began to unite. Walter's heart swelled with pride, but a part of him still ached for Sarah. He turned to search for her in the back of the room, and their eyes met for a brief moment. Would this be the turning point, or just another chapter in a long string of too late attempts to connect? In that split second, she saw not just the wild-haired old man advocating for dignity, but a father, aching and vulnerable, standing brave amidst his own storms. As the meeting began to transform, fueled with promise and collaboration, a question lingered in the air. Will this movement bring them closer together or drive a deeper wedge in their already fractured relationship? And would Walter ever be able to reach out for his daughter's hand in a world that seemed to push them apart? Walter felt the energy ripple through the room as the community united in a shared purpose. Plans were forming, ideas bouncing from one person to another, each suggestion more passionate than the last. Yet his gaze was still fixed on Sarah, hoping to see a hint of softening on her face. But she simply stood there, guarded, as if she were wrapped in a cloak of defiance. Let us form a task force. We can organize a food drive, or maybe provide workshops for the kids, someone shouted excitedly. Walter felt a pulse of belief surging within him. This was it, the community was awakening. But Sarah remained still, wrestling with her feelings. She wanted to feel proud of the gathering, to cheer alongside the others, but her heart was tangled in resentment. It wasn't fair of her to feel this way, not when they were doing something so essential. And yet, anger lingered in the back of her mind. "Dad," she finally whispered, her voice barely audible over the gathering momentum. Walter didn't hear her at first, caught up in the tides of enthusiasm around him. But then he turned back, his eyes scanning the room until they found hers again, wide and full of emotion. "Dad, what do you really want?" Walter's heart dropped, his stomach twisting. There was no way to dodge the question now. He could see the hurt in her eyes, the past layered over the present like an unwelcome fog. "I want to be better for us both," he admitted, his voice raw. The crowd dimmed for a heartbeat, the air becoming thick with anticipation. "Better how? By running off to rally others while I'm here feeling alone?" Sarah's words cut through the intimacy he felt build. It was as if a wound had been reopened, raw and aching. A shallow breath escaped his lips. I never meant for you to feel this way," he responded, vulnerability cracking open his bravado. It felt exhausting to explain, yet liberating all at once. "I'm trying to make a change. One that includes you." His plea resonated, sending a wave of wonder around the room. Even the younger man who had initiated the action turned, eyes darting between father and daughter, sensing the magic and tension in the air. "Maybe we all have our own battles," the young man offered, attempting to bridge the gap. "What if we share ours? What if together, we create something that can help everyone?" The energy surged again as others chimed in, stirring ideas and dreams for change. Walter felt hope bloom, yet Sarah stood unyielding, holding on to her doubts. She wanted to believe, to trust that her dad was capable of change. Could he really build something from the ashes? Something they could share? "Do you really think you can?" Sarah challenged, a hint of hurt and hope lacing her voice. You said you'd be there for me. Where were you when I needed you? As those words hung in the air, the crowd went silent, absorbing the weight of the moment. Walter's heart raced. He wanted to reach through that silence, to gather her in his arms and promise everything would be different. But would they only misinterpret his intentions again? The atmosphere was electric. People exchanged glances, some nodding and understanding as if they sensed what was at stake. And then, against the quiet, Walter took a step forward. Using every ounce of courage, he said, "Let us heal, not just as a community, but as a family. We can do this together." Sarah's breath hitched, uncertainty etching lines of struggle on her face. Could he mean it? As she searched his eyes, she realized that the journey ahead wasn't just about the gathering of the community. It was also about the courage she would need to confront the truth about their relationship. Together, could they find a way to mend their broken pieces? And as the room buzzed with ideas, a single question lingered. Was she ready to let those walls come crumbling down? Or would she keep her heart shielded, locked away from a chance they both desperately needed? Walter felt the weight of Sarah's gaze, each look a question in itself. The room around them hummed with ideas, but all he could focus on was her. The noise faded into a dull thrum, leaving just the two of them standing on a precipice of emotions. "Can we start over?" he asked, his voice unsteady yet hopeful. A chance, a breath, a spark. She crossed her arms, that familiar armor of defiance springing back into place. "Start over? Just like that? You think saying words will change things?" He couldn't blame her for doubting him. Trust was like a fragile thread, easily frayed, and they had pulled on it so many times, only for it to snap. Yet here they stood, both wanting something more, but unsure how to reach for it. "I can't change the past, but I can promise to be here now," Walter said, hoping for understanding. "This isn't just about me anymore. It's about us, and the community." The crowd, sensing the tension, leaned in silently, listening more to the emotional exchange than to the ideas about food drives or workshops. An uneasy hush settled, waiting for the next move from Sarah. "I want to believe you," she replied finally, her voice wavering, a whisper of hope threaded with doubt. "But you know how many times I've heard promises before." "Then let us make this different," he urged, stepping closer. "Let us make it together. One step at a time. We can come up with something real hand in hand." A flicker passed through her eyes, brief yet powerful, but just as quickly, she masked it again with resolve. "How can I trust you? You're still focused on everyone else while I'm here feeling unseen." Pain lanced through Walter. She had every right to feel overlooked. "Sarah, I understand. I've been so focused on making up for lost time that I forgot to show up for the moments that matter most. I need you to guide me. Tell me what you want." The crowd watched intently, breaths held, ready for this critical moment. Walter felt like he was straddling two worlds, the solace he sought in the community and the deep love entwined with chaos in his relationship with his daughter. "I want you to be my dad," Sarah finally said, tears brimming in her eyes. "I want to be able to talk to you like I used to, before everything fell apart." "I want that too," he responded. "I'm here now. Not just standing in front of you, but really here. Let us figure this out." The words hung in the air, floating on the hope that maybe, just maybe, this was the start of something new. Walter could sense the shift ripple through the gathering. Whispers of excitement, glances of understanding exchanged. Just then, a voice rang out from the back, a man in his 70s, edge-worn but strong, with a presence that commanded attention. "I look at you too, and I see the strength to change tides. I've faced challenges of my own. It took me years to realize that connections matter more than just words. Sometimes, little moments count more than grand gestures." His words resonated. Community members leaned in closer, inspired by the elderly man's wisdom. "What do you want?" he continued, addressing Walter. "What is the truth behind your desire to rally this community?" Walter felt the urgency in the question, his heart racing as he reflected. How could he articulate the fear that had driven him, the painful longing to make things right, to find redemption amidst the wreckage? "I want to make a world where my daughter feels cherished, where we're part of something greater than ourselves," Walter replied earnestly, every ounce of his heart in the statement. The man nodded, and silence fell again as the realization of connection washed over them all. It wasn't just Walter, it was Sarah too. Let us build that world together, the elderly man suggested, looking back and forth between them, eyes gleaming. But you need to learn to trust each other first. Are you ready for that? The question hung heavy, entwined with every emotion swirling in Walter's chest. Would they step into the unknown together, or would hesitation push them apart once more? As Walter locked eyes with Sarah, the room buzzed with expectation, but only one thing remained for him to ponder. Was he ready to dismantle the walls that had stood too long, allowing vulnerability to seep into this fragile space? Walter took a breath, his heart racing as he held Sarah's gaze. The weight of expectations hung between them, a palpable tension that crackled in the air. He didn't want to screw this up. Not again. Sarah, I know I've messed up, he started, voice trembling slightly. But I've realized something. It's not about just being there physically. I need to truly listen to really hear you. She looked away, tears glistening in her eyes, fighting against the battle of resentment and longing that raged inside her. You don't get it, she said, her voice thick. Every promise feels like a band-aid over a wound that needs stitches. His chest tightened. She was right. Words weren't enough. They were just empty sounds without the weight of actions behind them. Yet, how could he show her he was serious? As he contemplated his next move, the elderly man in the back spoke again, breaking the intensity of the moment. Sometimes, we need to go back to the source to move forward. What was it that bound you two before? Let us talk about that. Walter thought hard, his mind racing back through the years. Memories flickered like old film reels, joyful moments overshadowed by the pain of the past. We used to cook together, he replied, a sudden warmth filling him. Remember how we used to spend Saturdays making those awful, but somehow delicious, pancakes? A small smile crept onto Sarah's lips, almost breaking through the cloud of anger. We always burned the edges. But we laughed so hard she trailed off, recalling the easy joy that came so naturally back then. That's it, Walter said, feeling a spark of hope ignite within. We can start there, cooking together again. It may seem small, but it's where we can rebuild. Sarah's gaze softened. Cooking? Really? You think that's enough? It's a place to begin, he replied, his heart racing as he leaned in, willing her to see the passion in his eyes. It's not about perfection, it's about moments. Just like the man said, those little moments matter. Unexpectedly, the elderly man stepped forward, his presence a steady anchor in the chaos of emotions swirling around them. Walter, sometimes we forget what first brought us joy. That's where the healing starts. Rebuilding trust is like cooking trial and error and lots of stirring. The crowd murmured in agreement, inspired by his words. Walter felt a sense of unity, like those in the room were rooting for them. Sarah studied him, her expression shifting from skepticism to vulnerability. You really want to spend time with me? Like that? Yes, he replied, sincerity dripping from each word. I promise to earn your trust. And I want to remind you how important you are to me, even if I forgot for a while. We can find our way back to each other, to who we used to be. As they held each other's gaze, the tension alive with possibility, a glimmer of hope flared bright. Maybe this was the chance they both needed, a way to reconnect, to find themselves again. Okay, Sarah finally whispered, each word dripping with caution, yet laced with promise. Let us start with pancakes, but you're not getting away without me teaching you how to not burn them. Laughter erupted softly in the room, easing the heaviness that had been there moments before. Walter felt a strange blend of relief and exhilaration wash over him. But just as they were building momentum, a loud commotion broke through. The doors swung open, and a frantic voice called out from the back, disrupting the newfound connection. Walter, you need to see this. It's about the community project, and it involves Sarah. The excitement in the air shifted, uncertainty creeping back in. Walter's heart sank for a moment, wondering what news could possibly be so urgent. Would it pull them apart again, just when they were starting to see a glimmer of hope? He turned to Sarah, eyes wide with concern. What could it be? Do you think it's something bad? As they shared an anxious glance, the anticipation in the room grew thicker, and Walter felt an electric charge in the air, knowing that whatever came next would change everything once again. Walter's heart raced as he turned to see who was shouting. A familiar face broke through the crowd, his friend Danny, eyes wide and voice strained. You have to come see. It's about the fundraiser. It's gone sideways. Gone sideways. Walter echoed, glancing at Sarah. Her brow furrowed in confusion, and he felt the weight of the room shift as the others leaned in to hear. Yeah, there's been some issue with the permits. The whole project might be halted unless we act fast. The city doesn't like the way some things were filed, Danny hurriedly explained. Catching his breath, Walter's stomach dropped. The community project had meant everything, restoring the old park, bringing families together again, and showcasing their shared history. He had poured countless hours into it, and now, just when he was beginning to mend things with Sarah, everything felt like it was crumbling. What about Sarah? She's been helping with the project too. Walter's voice trailed off, hopeful for a moment that maybe he wouldn't have to make this choice alone. But Sarah's expression hardened, a flicker of hurt flashing across her features. Right. The project. Of course, you'd have to go deal with that. She stepped back, that familiar tension creeping back in, threatening to sever their fragile connection. No, wait. Walter reached for her, but she was turning away, her shoulders slumping slightly. The laughter had long since faded, replaced by a chilling silence that wrapped around them like a shroud. Sarah, please, can we talk about this? He called after her, desperation flooding his voice. We can't keep pushing this aside, Walter. Her voice was thick with pain. Every time we're about to take a step forward, something happens, and you run back to your safe space. It's like I'm nothing but an afterthought. The crowd murmured, clearly feeling the rift that was reopening. Walter's heart sank deeper. He could feel the eyes of friends and strangers alike on them, the weight of their unspoken judgments pressing down. I know I've been wrong, and I don't want to go back, he pleaded, trying to bridge the chasm that was forming. But this project is important to the both of us, can't you see that? I can't be your backup plan. Sarah spun around, her voice rising. First pancakes, then the project? Am I just supposed to wait? I need more than that. I need you to fight for us. Walter stood there, breathless, realizing just how deep the scars ran. Did she think he wasn't fighting enough? Now, with everything spiraling, he felt the walls closing in. Look, Sarah, Danny interjected, sensing the tension. This can wait. We can figure this out later. Right now, it's about the project. It's about the community. But what about us? Sarah countered, her voice shaking. Can't we ever prioritize this? Walter felt torn. The urgency of the project loomed over him, yet Sarah's words struck a chord deep within. He needed to make a decision. He needed to choose between his responsibilities or fighting for Sarah, possibly losing her for good if he didn't. Sarah, he started, but before he could finish, Danny piped up. We can't let this fall apart, Walter. We'll handle this together. We have to act now. But Sarah's face was a mask of frustration and hurt, and Walter could see the cracks starting to form in her heart. Once again, he felt the space between them widening. This wasn't just about permits. It was about the trust that had been shattered. In that moment, everything hung in the balance. Would he step up and prove his commitment, or would he allow the fear of losing his community project to overshadow his chance with Sarah? As the room held its breath, Walter took a shaky step forward, ready to act, but insecurity lurked within him. Could he truly salvage both the project and his relationship, or was he destined to fail at what mattered most? With the pressure mounting, he saw Sarah's tears threatening to fall, and he realized that both his decisions had the power to change everything. And then, unexpectedly, he felt the rush of clarity. Could one simple decision reveal the strength of his love? Give me a moment, he breathed, as realization dawned. Could he find a way to unite them amidst the chaos? Before he could voice his thoughts, the door swung wide once more, revealing a shadowy figure that would challenge everything he thought he knew. Walter's pulse quickened as the door swung open, and in stepped an elderly man hunched over, clutching a cane as if it were his lifeline. The crowd parted, a wave of curiosity washing over them. The man had a weathered face, etched with lines from a life well lived. His gaze, however, was sharp, capturing the attention of everyone in the room. Excuse me, he croaked, his voice raspy but surprisingly strong. I couldn't help but overhear all this fuss about the park. He leaned on his cane, looking between Walter and Sarah, then back to the group. I lived in this neighborhood for nearly 60 years. I remember when that park was home to laughter, picnics, and community gatherings. Walter felt a tug in his heart. He knew the park's history, had envisioned reviving that spirit, but hearing it from someone who had lived it made him see it in a new light. The elderly man hesitated, searching the crowd for their faces, then turned back to Walter. You do remember, don't you? You've got to fight for that park. Fight for this community. What do you mean? Sarah interjected, her voice quieter now, curiosity replacing some of her earlier hurt. The permits? The man chuckled dryly, rolling his eyes. That's just red tape. You need to gather support, rally the people again. Make them remember what it means to come together. He paused, and Walter's heart raced, the urgency of the moment crashing over him. You need to bring them together not just for a project. They need to feel the connection again as a community. Walter's mind raced, processing the weight of those words. You're right, he murmured. The feeling of belonging rushed back the families at the park, the sound of children playing, and the laughter that echoed through summer evenings. But as he glanced at Sarah, he felt that familiar pang of uncertainty. He remembered her words about being an afterthought. Wait, hold on, Danny interrupted, taking a step toward the man. How do you know about the project? The elderly man waved a hand dismissively. Doesn't he matter how I know? He replied, a hint of a smile breaking his serious demeanor. What matters is that the park's potential isn't lost in red tape. But if you don't work together, the people won't care. They need to feel included, and you need to show them that they matter, too. Walter could feel the tension in the room shift. Eyes were now on him, and the stakes felt higher than ever. He thought of Sarah, of the spark that had lit between them during those early mornings, flipping pancakes and sharing dreams. But what if the city doesn't approve? He asked, feeling the weight of doubt creeping back. Approval is less important than unity, the elder replied. Community spirit outlasts bureaucracy. You fight for each other, and the rest will follow. Walter looked at Sarah, her eyes glistening with renewed determination. You're right, but how do we unite them? He asked the elderly man. Organize a gathering, an ice cream social, a weekend cookout. Show them it's about more than just permits. It's about revival. It's about friendship, hope, and love. Walter's heart surged with electricity. Those were the words he needed. It was time to show Sarah that she wasn't an afterthought in his life, but an integral part of it. As he took a step forward, ready to act, he glanced back at the crowd, seeing not just faces, but names, stories, connections that were waiting to be reignited. There was a flicker of hope, a chance to bring it all together, but as he was about to speak, the sound of a soft sob caught his attention. He turned to find Sarah, tears flowing freely down her cheeks. I don't want to just be part of a plan, Walter, she choked out. I want to be part of this together. And just like that, the walls that had seemed insurmountable moments before felt manageable. But then, as the crowd began to murmur in agreement, Walter felt the pull of a deeper realization. If he didn't fully commit to both the park and Sarah, what was he sacrificing? He took a deep breath, the weight of the moment settling over him. All right, let us organize this. Together he started, but before he could finish, the door swung open again. This time, it wasn't just anyone, it was someone from the city hall. And Walter knew, then, that everything was about to change again, the stakes higher than ever. Would they be ready? Walter felt the air thicken with unease as the newcomer stepped inside. The energy shifted, uncertainty flickering like a broken light. The city hall employee was no stranger. The thick glasses perched on his nose and the clipboard tucked under his arm painted him as someone who didn't just come to listen. Sorry to interrupt, the man said, his voice official but laced with urgency. I just got wind of the meeting here, and I wanted to clarify some points about the park project. He scanned the room, settling on Walter like a hawk. I need you to understand the reality of the situation. Walter's stomach tightened. He exchanged a nervous glance with Sarah, her eyes wide with expectation. Go on, Walter said, trying to mask his apprehension. The city representative cleared his throat. I'm happy to see community support for the park, but I must remind you, it's not as simple as a cookout. We have regulations in place, and let's be honest, many of them are there for a reason. Liability is a huge concern. But we're not just a liability. Danny interjected, stepping closer. We're a community. We're families that want to build something beautiful together. The man raised a brow, unimpressed. And I respect that, believe me. But you need to navigate the city's approval process carefully. Without the necessary permits, any community gathering could spiral into more problems. You run the risk of infighting among your own people when they see things not going according to plan. Walter felt the heat of Danny's passion collide with the official's cold demeanor, forming a thick fog of tension in the air. He could almost taste the bitter disappointment that threatened to seep in. But beneath that, a flicker of determination ignited within him. "Look," Walter began, driven by a force he hardly recognized. "We're not looking for an easy way out. We're willing to work through the obstacles. But we need your help to show how this can be a stepping stone for our community." The city employee crossed his arms, studying Walter as if measuring his resolve. "You think you can pull off the impossible? Get all those people invested and working toward a shared goal? Listen, kid, you're dreaming." Walter's heart raced as he braced himself for rejection. Yet, he thought back to the elderly man's words and the power of shared memories. "No, you're wrong," he replied, his voice steadying. "It's not just a dream. This is about reminding ourselves what we used to be. It's South about making the park a symbol of hope, a place where families can gather, feel safe, and connect." Then, in a surprising show of emotion, Sarah stepped beside him, wiping her tears dry. "Walter's right. If we take a chance on each other, and if we include everyone, maybe we'll show the city that what we're fighting for is worth it. We deserve to feel whole again." The crowd murmured, the tide beginning to turn. Walter sensed a change. People were beginning to rally not just behind him, but behind Sarah and the elderly man who had ignited this spark in them. Names were thrown around, friendships rekindled, and hope rekindled. The city representative remained silent, his clipboard clutched against his chest, and for a moment, Walter could see his walls softening, the facade cracking. It was now or never. "Please," Walter urged, feeling the emotions rise like a wave. "Give us guidance. Help us understand what we need to do. We don't just want to make a park. We want to create a place for future generations." At that moment, the elderly man, still leaning on his cane, stepped forward again. "Your words are powerful, son," he said, his voice firm. "But heart alone doesn't build bridges. It's also about strategy. You all need to put a plan together that communicates the benefits to the city." Walter felt a tingle of hope in the air, yet another thought whispered in his mind: what if the city had a hidden agenda? What if their approval was more about control than community? "What are you really looking for from us?" he pressed, daring to look the city employee in the eye. The moment stretched out, silence enveloping the room, the crowd awaiting the answer that could change everything. Walter's heart pounded, the stakes rising higher than ever before. Would they find common ground, or would their hopes be dashed once more? And just as the man opened his mouth, the bell above the door jingled again, and another unexpected visitor stepped in, one who could change the course of their fight forever. The atmosphere shifted once more as the newcomer strolled in, a frail elderly man with a weary smile and a twinkle in his eye. He ambled forward, cane tapping lightly against the floor with each labored step. An air of unassuming wisdom accompanied him, making the city employee momentarily break eye contact with Walter. "Excuse me," the elderly man began, his voice cracking like aged wood. "I hope I'm not too late for the conversation." He cast a quick glance at the crowd before settling on Walter and Sarah, his smile broadening with recognition. "Walter, dear boy, I heard about the meeting. You're fighting for something so noble," he continued, his tone filled with encouragement. "I nearly shouted at my television last night when I saw that news report. A community park should be a gathering place for all, especially in times like these." The city representative's expression hardened again. "With all due respect, sir, conversation is one thing, but approval is another matter entirely. That is where you miss the point." The elderly man insisted boldly. "Communities begin with voices. The louder they are, the harder it is to ignore them. That's how we build resilience, even in the toughest of times." Walter could feel the swell of emotion in the room growing. As the elderly man spoke, he noticed people leaning in, hearts open and ears attentive, drawn by the weight of shared experiences. "You see, young man," the elder resumed, directing his gaze toward the city representative. "What you call regulations, we call boundaries. And boundaries have a habit of imprisoning the very spirit that they were meant to protect. There are lives and stories behind these barriers. Each of us carries something precious that can contribute to your precious regulations." "Like what?" the city employee shot back, still skeptical. "Like hope," the elder exclaimed, passion igniting in his voice. "You want us to follow the rules while denying the potential of the people? We are here to work together. The past fragments stand as evidence of what we can do when our community rallies. We shouldn't just ask for permission. We should demand respect and understanding. Energy rippled through the room, voices murmuring agreement, eyes glistening with renewed hope. Walter felt goosebumps on his arms. The elderly man's conviction sank deep into the hearts of the attendees, igniting a collective fire that seemed impossible to extinguish. What we need to do is gather everyone's ideas, regardless of age or background, Sarah proposed, her voice tinged with excitement. Together, we can create a blueprint reflecting every heartbeat and every hope. A clear vision. Danny chimed in, yes. Host community forums, invite families, gather stories. We have to give them tangible evidence that our dreams lie within this very land. The city representative's brows furrowed deeper as he wrestled with their enthusiasm. And what happens when you don't get enough signatures for the proposal? Where will you be then? Walter took a breath, shaking off the doubt choking him. We'll start right now. This is our moment. We can gather the community and ask them, what does this park mean to you? The elderly man nodded approvingly. Exactly. It's about forging those connections. Every one of them matters. Have you ever seen a seed sprout just because it was watered, yet no light touched it? We need to keep the light on the dreams we have for this park. As Walter turned to gauge the reactions of the people behind him, he spotted hope glimmering in their eyes, a cast of determined smiles darting everywhere. Just as the momentum reached a peak, the bell rang again, and a different kind of energy permeated the room. Now who could that be? Walter wondered, glancing back at the door, half hoping, half worried. Because sometimes, unexpected guests can help unravel immense discoveries or ignite fresh conflicts. As the door swung open and another figure stepped inside, the room seemed to hold its breath. A woman, not much younger than Walter, walked through confidently. With a clipboard in one hand and a warm smile in the other, she exuded an aura of authority softened by kindness. Walter's heart fluttered. Could she be a part of the answers they desperately needed? Hello, everyone. I'm Linda from the City Planning Department, she announced, her voice carrying warmly throughout the room. I couldn't help but overhear the wave of passion coming from this gathering. She paused, and the crowd instinctively leaned in, eager for more. I came to clarify and perhaps even offer help with your community project. The tension shifted, anticipation mounting as Walter and Sarah exchanged glances, both surprised but hopeful. You've all spoken about the importance of the park, Linda continued, her eyes dancing with genuine interest. I was actually reviewing proposals just this morning concerning community spaces and their revitalization. If you have a plan that emphasizes unity and safety, we could discuss possibilities. Excitement sparked in Walter's chest. You mean you'll consider our ideas? Absolutely. I'd love to hear your vision and connect you with resources that can drive this forward, she replied warmly. Community-driven initiatives often sway decision-makers when they see people united in purpose. Sarah felt a warmth spread through her as the pieces began to come together, igniting hope. So, we could really gather stories about the park, about why it matters. Get signatures? Show the city our passion? Her voice was now steadied, each word echoing with newfound faith. Yes, the more voices, the healthier your proposal, Linda encouraged, sliding her clipboard under her arm. Gather the community, organize forums, and highlight how this park can strengthen families, create connections, and foster pride in your neighborhood. The room buzzed with renewed energy, the crowd turning to one another with excitement. Walter felt a swell of conviction. We can do this. He could practically hear the heartbeat of the community surrounding them, pulsating with hope. Let us start right now. I'll organize a rally, a celebration. Everyone can come together, share their stories, and we can craft a vision as a united force. How about an ice cream social? Offered someone from the back, and laughter rippled through the group. Yes, an ice cream social it is, Walter affirmed, the enthusiasm soaring, and glancing at Sarah, he saw the splendor in her eyes reflect back like sunshine breaking through clouds. They threw around ideas, banners, storytelling sessions, and fun family games. Walter realized how vital Sarah was to this vision. You'll help me organize all this, right? He asked, meeting her gaze, his heart pounding, highlighting our history and our bond. Sarah replied with a tilt of her head. Of course. In that moment, whispers of acceptance bridged the gap formed by resentment, knitting them closer together. Walter could feel the resolve growing between them, ready to forge nothing short of a miracle they discussed. The elderly man with a cane grinned approvingly, acknowledging their transformation. Sometimes all it takes is the courage to listen to hear the desire for connection and compassion from every corner. The room hummed with excitement, each participant feeding on the energy the answers had ignited. Each individual grasped their chance to be part of something bigger than themselves, weaving a richer tapestry of community, truth, and love. But would they really act? Walter believed they would, as the bonds of family started pulsing under hope's sway. Let us reassemble the stories of every soul who ever loved that park, Walter urged, determination thrumming beneath his feet. Let us work not just for permits, but for each other. The crowd echoed with agreement. The momentum couldn't be slowed. Together, the voices soared, fueled by the spirit of solidarity, transformation blossoming all around them, in an unbroken circle of connection. As they stood as one, Walter's heart felt full for the first time in years. This was real change, born not out of bureaucracy, but from the simple, honest act of choosing to lift each other. And there, amid the promise and passion, he reached for Sarah's hand, soulfully intertwining their future. Together, they would not only reignite the park, but reclaim their lost connection step by step, heart by heart. Now was their moment, and they would cherish it. And now, as you've witnessed this incredible story unfold, it's your turn to jump into action. Subscribe immediately to the channel so you don't miss the next exclusive stories. Leave a like now to feed the algorithm. It makes a difference. Comment your reactions and feelings about this inspiring ending. Share instantly this video with at least 5 friends who need to see this transformation. You need to support the channel. Don't wait, not even one more second to share.